late last night. We did a live stream on it, and I had no idea what was going on. So we're going to go ahead and cover the entire patch notes as we do in every patch notes. We're going to make a quick video about it. So came out 12.13. It's the Winter Wonderland patch notes. We're looking forward to it. So obviously it's going to have a snow theme. There's been a gameplay mode transformation. New special trips Clone Clash allows players to accumulate energy while battling to unlock a transformation ability. Once unlocked, players can transform into the older versions of Darkslayer and Wild Monkey for a limited time, granting them special abilities to use in battle. Alright, so that's interesting for Clone Clash. Then we have dancing. We got Superman and Wonder Woman dancing it off. This is a part of the new system adjustments. We'll talk about this. Players can accumulate power by winning ranked matches to gain legendary titles for their heroes. Rank among the top in the legend power rankings for each area to earn a legendary title that can be used for 1 week. Players can also check the legend power rankings and server's strongest rankings for all heroes to learn from the builds and arcana combinations of the top ranking players. That's a really interesting addition. I gotta say that I like it because it gives new players something rather than to the popular builds to see what some of the better players that each hero are doing in general. I think is a smart thing to do. Nothing wrong with that. Dance emotes. This is what we're looking at above. Watching Superman and Woman dance around was the dance emotes. Players can equip dance emotes to show off their sweet moves during matches. And then, of course, the new Snow Festival maps. All 5v5 battle maps will become Snow Festival maps to celebrate the season. Feature optimizations. We've reorganized the Hero Details interface. We hope that the cleaner interface will be able to support access for more features in the future. With the addition of more personalized expressions within matches, we've consolidated the communications panel. Now tapping on the newly added exclamation mark button will open the panel for sending the attack, defend, and rally signals that we're familiar with. So that's pretty simple. On the right side, instead of seeing all three of those buttons, there's an exclamation point. You click and hold it, and then they come up and you just drag to the one you want to do. It does technically take a little bit longer, but it does also give you more area of the screen to see. Made further adjustments to the parameters for each class in the MVP rating. So I'm interested. Again, I wish they would release a little bit more about that information so we could see exactly what it is, but obviously that's not going to happen. So, all right, battlefield changes. So stun. They removed the slow for 1 second. They added damage dealt by surrounding enemies is reduced by 40% for 2 seconds. That's interesting. Okay, so I wonder what does that mean exactly? I mean, so I'm assuming they mean days. Yeah, I'm assuming they mean days. So they've made it. Days used to be a half a second stun to all the enemies nearby, plus it would slow them down. Now it doesn't slow and it reduces the damage you take. So they're making it much more of a tank talent. They want you to take that talent when you're playing tank. Which obviously makes sense and is very interesting. So, and then they sprint, enable the instant cancellation of the slowdown effect, and obtain a constant decaying 70% increase in movement speed. Decreases to 30% within 1 second. This 30% movement speed bonus is maintained for 9 seconds. Dang. So that's a long time for sprint. I mean, sprint is, kind of a joke talent. No one ever uses it for any reason really that I can think of. And so it's interesting that they have that, they're changing it to make it, try to be more of a useful talent. Now, starting at 70% and decreasing to 30 within a second, that doesn't give you a lot of time of being at 70%. And then you get 9 seconds at 30%, which is a pretty decent amount, but it's not like, I don't know. I think sprint is still mostly just useless. But minion waves, base goal for minion wave is down across the board. Base experience points for minion wave down again. The interval between minion wave spawns is 33 seconds instead of 30 seconds. Just a pretty interesting deal. So they've made the gold less, but they've made them spawn more frequently. That's definitely 3 seconds may not seem like a lot, but when you're talking about rotations and moving around, invading jungle and getting objectives, 3 seconds is a long time. So we'll see how that affects gameplay. And then the gold growth for minion wave increased from 2.75 to 4%, which is a very, very large increase. That's almost doubling it up. Not quite, but that's a huge increase in the amount of gold that you're going to be getting now every 30 seconds. So that is interesting. I do wonder a little bit about what the goal, the intention is for that. All right, jungle monsters. Let's see. This is where I go. Adjusted gold growth for jungle monsters. Early game growth of 1%, adjusted to 2.5%. So they've realized that they've kind of destroyed the jungle a little bit. We talked about some of the changes that they did to the jungle as far as how much gold you would be getting, and it obviously took it down quite a bit. And I didn't think it was going to be as effective as it is, but really it went from being to where the jungle's automatically the top gold getter to where it wasn't so easy anymore to be the top anymore in the game or in your team. You know, when you're handling your other duties like ganking and objective gathering, or you know, objective completions like dragons and all that kind of stuff, it really became hard to maintain a top gold lead. So they're adjusting it back up some, and then attacks from the Abyssal Dragon and Rage Abyssal Dragon and Darksaber will reduce the HP recovery of heroes by 50% for 5 seconds. So that is a really interesting note. Now, it's not going to really affect you necessarily when you're in battle, but obviously think about it for a little bit, because this is what it does do. It makes it take longer to get your health back after you're done killing one of these, obviously. But when you're doing your heal or your recovery, whatever it's called, that everyone has in the game, you should probably wait 5 seconds after you get attacked for the last time by either the regular or the enraged Abyssal Dragon and the Darkslayer, so that you don't get the reduced HP recovery when you do that, because you only get it once a minute, so it's important to use it at the right time. The extent of gold growth of Abyssal Dragon every 30 seconds, it went from 5 to 6 now. So there's more gold to be had in the jungle across the board over time. Towers. The gold reward for destroying outer towers, so middle towers and inner towers, is up. So you're getting more gold for objectives, which is awesome. And then when there are no minion waves, the damage reduction percentage of inner towers is decreased. So they have made it easier to kill towers without minions, a pretty significant amount. About 50% more damage, but there's a new damage limit of 1,000 for one stage of damage by a hero towards the tower. Now this is good and bad. Now I think it would have been smart to limit this to attack damage heroes only, because mages for the most part aren't going to be doing that unless they build a very particular way, and I'm talking about the Apocalypse Loki's Curse combination, or just Apocalypse in general. Could cause you to do more than 1,000 damage as a mage. But if you're building Apocalypse and Loki's Curse, you're kind of sacrificing other stats to do that, and they shouldn't limit the amount of damage that you could do to a tower, because you've made a sacrifice to get those items, and part of the reason why you did that was to do extra damage to towers. So you're still doing more than other mages, but I understand why they would want to limit the damage done. I wish they would have done it only for attack damage heroes, because I think it would have made more sense. Because very few heroes are even capable of doing that much damage, and as far as magic damage dealers are, except for the ones that really build a particular way for a particular reason. So I wish they would have thought that one through a little bit more, but it is what it is. Drake. Attack damage of the Drake increases by 10%, including towards minions and towers. Oh, including towards minions and towers. I'm an idiot. Okay, adjusted the movement speed of the Drake so that it will push lanes at a similar speed to the minion wave. That's good. We have removed the movement speed increase that the Drake gives to minions from the Drake Roar buff. Reduce the movement speed of the Drake from 340 to 300. Optimize the pathfinding AA logic of the Drake to make it easier for players to summon and use. Previously, when the Drake was released further away from a tower, it would pass through the jungle in a straight line to the nearest tower. With the new AA logic, the Drake will lock onto the nearest minion wave and attack it. That makes sense. Okay, so we're going to the balance changes. So we're going to check that out real quick. And that is going to take some time. There's a lot of changes, looks like, being done. Okay, we're going to start off with... Illumia. Ability 1, Divine Light. Added a timer display for enhanced ability. So there's a little timer. That's interesting. I mean, it makes sense. The radius of the outer border of explosion is increased. So she'll be able to hit people a little bit easier. Not really a lot. Not enough to, like, make it a wow thing, but it is something. Additional damage along the path of the enhanced Divine Light. 1 time to 1.6 times. Additional damage. Okay. So people who get hit by it along the way take extra damage now. So that's interesting. I mean, they're all buffs, nothing crazy, so it's not like Illumina's becoming overpowered, but it definitely helps her become a little bit more interesting, and maybe for hardcore Illumia players, this is a difference maker. Now, Preda has been changed a lot. Ability 1, Plague Scepter, that is the, he's used the dragon, the kind of image of himself out. They've reduced the damage. Now, they haven't reduced it, they have reduced it. They've increased the damage, but they've reduced the AP scaling. So, yeah, they've changed it so it does less damage early game, or it does a little bit more damage early game, but it'll equal, it does less damage late game. They did that by reducing the scaling plus reducing the actual base amount. Ability 2, Poison Gas Bomb. The stun time after enhancement has been reduced 0.25 seconds, so 25%. The cooldown has been decreased so you can do it more often early game, but it's the same at 9 seconds late game. And then ability 3, the ultimate, Discipline of the Plague. The shield has been increased. The shield has been decreased, making him a little bit less tanky. And the AP scaling has also been decreased. So it went from 1200 late game to 1000, and then from 1.2 AP scaling to 1.0. And then the attack speed bonus, though, was increased from 25% flat from all 3 levels to 24, 32, and 40. That is a big difference maker. And then the range damage, the range magic damage, so the extra damage you get on your auto attacks with Preda, has been increased from 80 to 100 at rank 1, and then 160 to 175, and then at rank 3 from 240 to 250. But the AP scaling has gone up from 0.4 to 0.5. 10% extra damage on those auto attacks is a big deal. Not only are you getting a little bit extra base, but you're getting 10% extra from the actual auto attacks based on your attack ability power. And the attack speed bonus from 25 to 40% makes Preda's ultimate much, much stronger than it used to be. And I think it's going to be a big difference maker for what I consider to be a really underrated hero who really deserves more playtime. I think Preda's going to be even stronger in his ultimate. Those auto attacks are going to be hitting a lot harder and a lot faster. And I can't wait to see it. Now, one thing that I find interesting, and we'll talk about this later. You know what? I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to discuss it later when we talk about item changes. I'll give you guys kind of a theory or an idea that I have that I think you guys might find interesting. All right, next we have Ignis, and they just changed his first ability, Fire Crash. They've increased the damage early game from 320 to 340, and then they reduced it late game from 620 to 540, and they reduced the AP scaling from 0.5 to 0.4. This is pretty different. So late game, that's first ability is going to do quite a bit less damage. That's a decent nerf to his late game, but a small buff to his early game. Just the first level, hopefully we'll probably make him clear ways fast or something. I don't know exactly why they would do it like that, but yeah. So Ignis is definitely nerfed late game. And then the Flash, they increased his base movement speed by 20, and then his first ability, Super Speed, they reduced the cooldown a second across the board, which is nice. I think Flash hadn't become irrelevant, but I think that he had some of the nerfs they did made him a lot harder to play, and a little bit of a cooldown reduction on this just helps make him a little bit better. Can't hate that. And then Raz gets a nerf on the damage of his second ability. That's his Fireball, his Power Surge. They reduced not the early game, but the late game damage. You know, level 2, 3, 4. It looks like it goes 10, 20 damage, 30 damage, 40 damage, and then 50 damage across the board. So level 1 is the same, and then it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then the AP scaling is reduced from 0.93 to 0.9. So nothing crazy. I mean, it'll be a little bit less powerful, but it's not like going to ruin Raz or anything. Then we're moving on to Annette, who is getting some changes. Let's see. Ability 1, Gust Force. Damage was 75 to 120. It's going to 65 to 110, so it's a small reduction. And the AP scaling is going up, so the base is going down. And what that is essentially is they're trying to reduce a little bit of the damage that you get from building a net and barely building any ability power on her, building her really, really tanky. Makes sense. And then her ultimate, you don't need to cast continuously for the ultimate, which is a good thing. And then the radius of her ultimate area has been decreased from 4.5 to 3.5. That's definitely a solid decrease for Annette. And it makes you need to be, it doesn't make it worthless. What it does is it makes the nets need to be a lot more accurate with where they place that ultimate for it to be really effective. And it makes the people who are inside, you know, need to play smarter so they don't walk out of the ults, you know, the radius now. The duration of the ultimate area has been decreased from 3.5 to 2.5 seconds. So that is actually a pretty solid decrease. And then the cooldown has been increased by 10 seconds across the board. So Annette got a solid nerf, and I think we'll definitely see these effects in game. Oz and Kaz, the ability of his second ability, Dust Devil, which is the one where he shoots out the balls, I believe. That's been reduced. I don't remember. I think it is. Let's see. Let's just look it up to double check. Azinka, Dust Devil, his second ability is, it's the one where he shoots out the Dust Devil swords, and they bounce around. So the range has been increased, which is good. Azinka still isn't quite up to par and could use another buff or two, and this just helps in that process. Maganga's base movement speed has moved up, and his growth attack speed has been moved up. So the growth attack speed isn't a lot. I mean, it's 15% total attack speed by the end of the game. So I don't think it's anything crazy. Then we're moving on to Natalia. Oh, man, my sweet Natalia girl. What did they do to Natalia? Base armor has been increased. Max growth, max HP been increased. Shorten the duration from the casting of Natalia's ultimate to when it can be canceled. So it can be canceled faster. There's not a whole lot of need to do that very often if you know what you're doing. So Natalia gets small buffs across the board. Kali's base damage has gone up by 10. These are just small little changes that don't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. Talanas has been changed quite a bit. Her first ability, Eagle Eye, the magic, the magic damage equal to physical damage has been changed. So, okay, so they've changed the damage. They've actually increased the damage 10 base across the board from 1 to 6, and they've keep the scaling the same, and it can critically strike. Then magic damage equal to physical damage. It's a confusing way of putting it. Let's look her up in the game and really figure out what that means, because it's a really weird way of saying it. All right, Talanas' first ability. After you activate the ability, Talanas' range significantly increases. And then also her normal attacks are imbued with dark power and deal magic damage as well as physical damage. Both damages are capable of striking critically. Okay. Whatever. So yeah, she just got an increase in her damage. Just a slight one. 10 per level. So it's enough to make, it's something. The physical damage for the penetrating shot, the damage for penetrating shot, second ability, has been increased dramatically from the base standpoint, but it's been reduced dramatically from the scaling. Without doing hard math, I can tell you, a Talanas build will probably have somewhere in the 500 to 600 range of attack damage, maybe a little bit more. So when you reduce 40% of that, you're talking about taking away, 300 or 400 damage. So you are effectively nerfing Talanas, making her stronger early game with her penetrating shot, but late game it's definitely going to be weaker. Because they're only adding in 245, and the 40% they take away is worth more than that. So yeah, it's definitely, I would say, a nerf of sorts. So say we have 600, you're taking away, let's see, 2,400 or 240. So it ends up probably evening out at the end, but it makes a stronger earlier game with the penetrating shot. So it's actually probably not a nerf at all. It's probably more of just a stronger. It actually might be a buff overall, now that I'm just thinking the numbers through properly. So interesting. And then they remove the arrows, lose 20% damage for each enemy hit. So that's a big buff. Each enemy hero hit increases movement speed by 20% for 1 second. So I'm going to look this up in the game too, because this is interesting. I want to read the whole thing now. So she fires 3 arrows, does damage, and so they've increased that. We discussed it. They kind of increased that a little bit, especially early game. And it reduces their movement speed by 40% for 2 seconds. For every enemy hero hit, Talanas gains movement speed. So that's actually a really solid buff. So the damage is no longer decreasing, and she gets a movement speed increase. So the reason I really love that is because it's going to make it a lot harder for people to get away from Talanas. Now keep in mind, Talanas' arrows naturally slow. So now you're getting slowed by her arrows naturally. That's her passive. No, it's not her passive anymore. Okay, so she doesn't slow anymore. Yeah, no, she does. That's her first ability. Is what it is. It's a passive from her first ability. Sylvanas' normal attacks reduce the target's movement speed by 6%, and it stacks up to 5 times. So every time she hits somebody, she's slowing them. Then she slows them with that. So really, she could slow up to, just from her passive going up to 30%, and her second ability, she can slow them up to 70% and increase her own attack speed, making it really difficult to get away from her. That's actually really cool. Sylvanas seems to be a lot stronger after this. And then they altered her ultimate Era of Chaos. They removed, all they did was remove the movement speed increased by 30%. So they removed the ability to get a movement speed buff from her ultimate. So they kind of added that into the second ability. They really needed to make the second ability more worthwhile, because what had happened was, and this is actually really interesting, and a lot of Sylvanas players probably didn't understand this, honestly. Sylvanas' second ability had become totally useless to use. And the reason I say that is because she has a natural slow anyways. It didn't give her a movement speed. And it used to, and the slow was 40%, but she didn't necessarily need it. And it actually caused you to do less overall damage, to stop auto-attacking and use the second ability, than just to continue auto-attacking. Even the slows might have evened out, you know, because she attacks so fast if she's built properly. So they've made the second ability from completely useless and a waste of time to use to something that's actually usable. So I'm interested to see some Talana gameplay in-game now that I've read these changes. Yorn, passive ability, the damage of each shot went from 75 plus 4 per level plus 4 per ID. So they gave Yorn a small buff, making him still one of the worst marksmen in the game. Slims, his Savage Potion, percentage of damage based on max HP. So it went from 4, 5 to 6. Okay, so that's interesting. It used to be 4, 5, and 6% of max HP damage. And they changed it to 3, 4, 5, but they fixed the bug in which the percentage was not growing. So who knows? We may have been stuck on 4 forever. So when we hit 5, that might be the highest percentage damage Slim's ever done. And we don't know how bad that was and how often it happened, how common it was. But, I mean, overall, I'm not sure that's a huge... I mean, it's a small nerf. I don't know how much it's going to really affect it. They changed Joker's ultimate Canned Laughter. Physical damage is significantly increased. It looks like 90 for level 1. It's increased 55 for... No, 155 for level 2. And 220 for level 3. That's a big increase in damage for his ultimate. Now, they did nerf him a couple times in different ways, including the fact that his ultimate no longer completely is immune to all crowd control effects. So, I understand this. I understand it. Fennec. His first ability's cooldown has been decreased early game, but it evens out late game. And his ultimate's cooldown has been decreased across the board, 6, 5, and 4 seconds. So Fennec getting a little bit of a buff overall. Lindis, Piercing Gaze. Her first ability. So that's the one that, let me just double check, because I haven't played in a couple of months. I want to make sure I'm giving you guys accurate info. So her first ability is the one that it gives her vision. So she gets vision, and after learning the ability, here, this is the passive. When Linus hits the same enemy 3 times in a row, the target will suffer additional damage. So they've increased the additional damage. So now they've increased it early game by 15, and they've decreased it late game by 60. So they are trying to decrease Linus's late game damage. This is not a huge change for her though. Zephyrus is getting changes. Ability 1, which is his dash. Physical damage is decreased early game across the board. 15 across the board, and then 10 late game. So 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. Okay. So the first additional physical damage is getting huge. Okay, so let's go to the ability and read through it properly, because what I think is happening is that so that's the one where he dashes forward and he does damage on the dash, and then he gets an enhanced auto attack afterwards. So yeah, they've decreased the damage of the damage you do with the dash, but they've increased the damage that he does on the enhanced auto attack by a decent amount. So it'll even out a little bit. So what it does is it is essentially buffing people who are building Zephyrus more tanky, because it's reducing the AD scaling from 1.5 to 1.3, so building attack damage is worth a little bit less, but the base has gone up substantially from 85 to 75, which is a 90 increase, and then from 145 at level 6 to 300, which is a 155 increase. So overall, I gotta think that this is a buff to Xanis. I think the damage difference will be that he does a lot more damage with that ability, because people aren't building a lot of AD on him as it is, and 0.2%, when you're already getting 1.3 is not a huge amount. We're talking maybe 120 damage, and it's 155 damage at the end of the game. Now, he doesn't build that much attack damage, so it's probably not even that much. It's probably closer to like 80 damage, and he gets 155 extra. So it's definitely a buff to his overall damage. And then his second ability, wow. So this is a early game buff. Obviously, they reduced the cooldown from 8 to 5 across the board, but a late game nerf where it used to be 4 and now it's 5. At late game, Zephyrus can essentially just spam that ability. So here's the good news about that, actually. For Zephyrus players and Zephyrus fans, you're naturally probably going to get some cooldown reduction on Zephyrus if you build him in common manners that Zephyrus gets built. Now, at 4 seconds with some cooldown reduction, you are well below 3 seconds on your ability to cast the Death's Flurry, which is the, where he does a stabbing thing and he gets healed. So I don't see this as too big of a late game nerf. I see it much more as a early game buff, because nobody was truly casting. I mean, unless you're like in a really intense one-on-one, you didn't necessarily need to have the cooldown that low all the time. But having it way lower early game, I think, is a huge benefit. So I'm actually a big fan of both of these changes. Zephyrus is stronger, and he was already one of the best heroes in the game, so that's super interesting. Next, we have Cricknack, and they changed his passive. They reduced the damage just 20 flat from his passive bite, which is where, let's double check to make sure we get it right. When he hits an enemy with an ability, the next normal attack deals additional damage, so they've nerfed that a little bit. Then his ability, Terrifying Plague, they've reduced the damage on that pretty substantially early game by 50 damage, and then by end game it's 25 damage, and they reduced the AD scaling from 1.6 to 1.5, and then the percentage of magical damage based on HP went from 10 plus the 0.02 additional AD to 8, so they reduced that by 2%. So it's a pretty solid damage nerf. Cricknack's damage was pretty ridiculous. I mean, he was getting to the point where he could one-shot so many different kinds of heroes in the game because his damage was it's just instant damage. It was so overwhelming. So probably a necessary nerf to him. Then we have Murad, whose passive attack damage bonus 5%. So instead of 5%, so 5% of 600 is going to be the equivalent of 30 if Murad goes full AD. 600 is a baseline. It's not a guarantee. And then now it's 24 plus 3 every 2 levels. So he's going to get that proccing on him 7 times. So that'll be 21. So it'll be 45 extra damage instead of probably what amounts to 30. So it's better early game for him and better late game. So I think that's overall it's a small buff to Murad. Then we have Ryoma, his second blade, the Wailing Blade, which is when it goes out and if at the tip of the attack it stuns, damage has been increased across the board, 30 at level 1 all the way up to 55 at level 6, and the AD scaling went from 2 to 2.1, so 10% extra AD. I mean, solid little nerf for Ryoma, nothing crazy, but definitely going to be helpful. Then we have Batman. Let's see, Batman's getting his ultimate added. Cannot be selected during flight if his ability is activated again while invisible. Okay, let's read that again. Cannot be selected during flight if this ability is activated again while invisible. I am not sure I fully understand what the crap that means, to be honest. Cannot be selected during flight if this ability is activated again while invisible. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea what that means. I'm trying to understand it. Flight is when he is doing the second portion of his ultimate and he's flying at somebody, but I'm not sure why it would say It can't be selected again during flight if this ability is activated again while invisible. Maybe that's just fixing a glitch of some sort. If you guys know what that means, let me know in the comment section. I'd appreciate it. I'm sure it's gonna be something stupid, and I'm gonna feel like an idiot afterwards. But oh well. Rourke, passive ability Scatter Shot. Percentage of damage dealt to structures based on attack damage increased from 80 to 100%. Now that they've capped the damage at 1,000, this isn't that big deal. Ability 1 charge shot. Storage time for enhanced normal attacks increased from 1.5 to 4 seconds. Wow, that's a solid nerf, guys. So that's the enhanced auto attack that Rourke has, and so let's take a look at him in the game and see exactly what this means to him. So charge shot is like, that's the one where he gets the enhanced attack movement speed. And then his next normal attack fires bolts, and if you're at point blank range, it does a ton of damage. So they've increased the storage time for enhanced normal attacks. Interesting. Okay, so I mean it's a nerf for sure, 1.5 to 4 seconds. I'm reading the actual thing, and I'm not sure what it has to do with his first ability. There's no storage time for enhanced normal attacks. Oh, I get it. Okay, there's a buff. I'm stupid. Okay, so it used to be you had 1.5 seconds to shoot the enhanced auto attack. Now you have 4 seconds to shoot it. I'm feeling real dumb with the last couple ones, so bear with me here. But we figured that one out. So it's a buff. You get more time, but 2 buffs across the board for Rourke, which is interesting. I don't see him played very often, so it's not a big deal. He's not a super highly played hero right now. Richter gets a lot of changes. Let's take a look at those. Passive Fighting Spirit movement speed bonus when switching between environments. 40% for 1 second to 50% for half a second. Interesting. The first ability slash damage. The general strike slash damage 150 to 300 plus 0.8 from to 125 to 1. So it's a nerf on the base damage, 25 across the board. Not a big deal. Not huge. Magic damage from normal attacks, 25 to 50 to 10 to 135. So another nerf of 15 across the board. And then they adjusted the judgment of ability 1 in the various forms to maintain consistency with the effects. Okay. Number 2, retaliate. Physical damage dealt from counterattack, 200 to 450 plus 1.2 to 200 to 425. Plus 1. So they nerfed the damage, and then they added physical damage when on land, 200 to. So they've up the physical damage when on land. Okay. So let's take a quick look at Rourke or on Richter and see what exactly that means. So his second ability reads: Richter raises his sword to block attacks, becoming immune to all damage and debuffs for 0.75 seconds. He then counterattacks and deals damage. The ability has 2 charges. When a control effect is blocked again. Okay. So I think this is based on his passive. He adapts to his environment. So when he's on land, or I assume that means, I actually don't know, to be honest. If his damage went on land. Okay, so it appears to be a buff of some sort. They added it, so it must do more damage when on land. Okay, and then Baldum's been changed. I heard the Baldum changes were interesting. That's what happens when you don't play for 2 months. You start to, lose track of what the hell's going on. So, okay, then we have Baldum. Baldum, his first ability, Wild Charge. The cooldown has been reduced by 2 seconds early game. Okay, that is a sick 2 seconds on what is one of the better abilities in the game. Baldum's Wild Charge is an absolutely awesome ability. That's awesome. Okay, so then they added 2 things to his Wild Stomp. Double damage to jungle monsters, which is awesome. And then they added the cooldown of this ability is also reduced by 0.3 seconds every time it hits jungle monsters. So, ooh, man, this is sick. So, Baldum is essentially becoming a jungler, which is awesome because I really like the idea of having more junglers, more types of junglers, instead of just marksman and assassin. I really like the idea of doing some warriors and tanky type guys in the jungle. Percentage of damage reduction is also wildly increased from 15 to 25% at level 1 to 30 to 50% at level 6, which is a huge increase. That is intense. So now the cooldown gets reduced, so you should be able to have your second ability up in the jungle almost continuously. And then you're going to do double damage to jungle monsters with that. So that is going to make Valor a beast. I am definitely going to be playing him in the jungle tonight to test that out. You guys, if you guys have been watching my stream since I've been back from my back injury, I've been loving Wonder Woman in the jungle. I'm telling you guys, tanky or warrior-ish junglers are going to start to become a more normal thing for a couple different reasons, and part of it is because they're going to be able to take advantage of a much reduced tank meta, and we'll talk about that in the item section. But I'm telling you guys, I'm excited. And Wonder Woman, as you guys know, I just talked about, I've always loved playing her in the jungle ever since she first came out, and she's always been a really good clearer. But when they do this, which you guys can't see it because I'm not there, let me move down a little bit. When they change her first ability to do the maximum damage to jungle monsters from 1 to 1,000, this does two things. Number one, it makes her jungle clear much faster. Number two, it makes her much better at securing the jungle objectives like the dragon, the dark slayer, and the spirit sentinel. So it's awesome. Wonder Woman jungle is officially and legitimately a real thing, which I always said it was, but now people are going to start playing. You're going to start seeing it played a lot more. Wonder Woman is starting to have one of the fastest clears in the entire game, and I can't wait for you guys to see that. She's always had a very fast clear if you know how to play her, because you can use the lasso to move around very fast around the jungle. Never forget that your boy at Sunbros has been playing Wonder Woman in the jungle from day one, when all these posers are pretending like she's all of a sudden viable. I've been successfully doing it forever, and it just got better. Xanath is getting a lot of changes. Let's take a look and see if Xanath still sucks. Ability to tail sweep, increase the attack speed. Holy freaking crap! Okay, from 50. That is the craziest buff I've ever seen. So, when you use his ability tail sweep in the past, it used to give Xanath a 20% increase in damage. That's it. Or, sorry, a 50% attack speed bonus. I'm sorry. Now it's 100 at level 1 and 200 at level 5, at level 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. So that is insane. That is wild. And the reason why it's so wild, 200% attack speed is the maximum attack speed you can have. Now I'm going to go read it at the actual ability. Okay, so Xanath strikes the ground, dealing damage to nearby enemies. If enemy units are hit, Xanath's attack speed will be increased by 100%, and he gains 10% life steal for 3.5 seconds. So it doesn't say in the game that it actually goes up, but it sounds like it does. So 100% is how it starts, and 10% life steal. The life steal goes all the way up to 20%. And the cooldown goes 6.5 seconds, and it lasts what, 3.5 seconds? I mean, that is so. If it lasts 3.5 seconds and the cooldown is 6.5 seconds, that leaves 3 seconds where he cannot have 200% attack speed. That seems broke as balls to me. They added the lifesteal portion. That wasn't even in there before. Duration of increased attack speed and lifesteal reduced from 5 seconds to 3.5 seconds. And the cooldown has been reduced. Still, that is nuts. 20% lifesteal and 200% attack speed for all but 3 seconds. Now you put some cooldown reduction on Xanath, and he's going to be nuts. Put the beast on Xanath with cooldown reduction, and you'll be able to have 200% attack speed all the time. Go full damage with him and just shred things. That is crazy. Duration of increased attack speed and lifesteal is 35%. Or let's see, the cooldown. Okay, so sorry, I got off track there. Xanath's ultimate, Dragon's Wrath. Additional true damage decreased across the board. So his ultimate's not nearly as good. The damage reduction is now gone. So he's gone from like a warrior off tanky kind of guy to just a straight burst damage hero. The cooldown was also increased on his ultimate. So his ultimate is a lot less effective, but his second ability is a lot more effective. So I am willing to give Xanath a shot in the jungle with these changes and see if he's any more fun. I would also like to see if he's any more or any less of a stupid hero as far as like needing to screw your team over to be successful. So I'm interested to see both of those things and see how that plays out. Next, we're moving on to Lumber. Lumber's second ability's cooldown has been reduced 2 seconds early game, and it evens out at the same 10 seconds late game. So Little buff to Lumber's early game with the second ability Rampage. And then his ultimate's cooldown is decreased 4 seconds, 2 seconds, and then even level 3. And the mana cost is reduced 30, 40, and then 50. So the mana cost for second ability is also decreased 5, 10, 15, 20, and then it looks like 25 and 30. So a lot more mana for Lumber to go around now, and reduction in cooldowns early game for a second and third ability. So a couple buffs for Lumber. I think he's an underutilized support as it is, so then maybe that'll help him get played a little bit more. Wybeneth, or Ebeneth as some people say for whatever reason. Passive natural affinity, HP recovered per second. Went from 80 plus 15 per level to 45 plus 18 per level, so that has been reduced a pretty solid amount. So it's 35 reduction, but you're going to get 3 per level more, which is going to end up getting you more actually overall. So it's less early game, more late game, because 3 times 15 is of course going to be 45. So you actually end up getting a little bit more late game HP recovery for his passive. I'm going to go ahead and read his passive so everyone knows what I'm talking about. Where's Wybeneth? Wybeneth, where are you? I lost Wybeneth. There he is. Alright, his passive is Wybeneth regenerates HP and mana every second for 5 seconds while standing in brushes. So if he gets attacked, obviously it goes away, and it goes on for 5 seconds. So, and then there's a 15-second cooldown. So it just, it's a little bit, they just adjusted it really. His first ability, Wicked Thorns and Redwood Rush. That is the one where he extends his limbs and hits people. The damage has been decreased dramatically. No, I'm sorry, it's been decreased early game, and it will be increased late game. Again, they're nerfing Wybeneth's early game, and they're buffing his late game slightly. So it's really just an adjustment to how powerful he is early game, and making him a little bit stronger late game. I don't think he needed to be stronger late game. I think if they just nerfed his early game, that'd have been enough, but that's what it is. Okay, then we're moving on to Roxy. Okay, Roxy's first ability, Wildfire. They added damage and healing are doubled within 2.5 seconds of activation. So let's go to Roxy's page in the game and just go through that so we're on the same page of what we're talking about. That is when her boots are infused with fire, and just obviously she activates her fire dealio with her boots. So in the first 2.5 seconds, okay, so for the first 2.5 seconds when it's active, it does double of the damage and healing. Okay. They've also nerfed the damage across the board. Not just the it's 15 across the board. 15 at level 1 and then 35 at level 6. And then it went from 0.16 AP to 0.14 AP. So an actual nerf to the overall damage, but a buff to the damage in the first turn. So it's going to make it more important to activate that first ability more intelligently and not just walk around with it on all the time when you have blue buff. So you might want to wait to activate it when you are near somebody and you're ready to take action. And then her third ability, of course, her Agni's Grasp, is the control time fixed at 2.5 seconds. Control time is now 1.5 at level 1 to 2.5 seconds. So the closer, so the closer it is, the longer the duration. So the closer she is when she hits it, the longer it lasts. The further away. Okay, that's interesting. And the cooldown has been reduced 5, 4, and 3 seconds. So a couple of, I would say overall buffs for Roxy, but they're just changes really to how that works. So Tara's growth max HP increased dramatically by 50, which is a pretty solid amount. The passive ability, attack damage bonus for each 1% of max HP lost. Went from 2 to 5, increased level to 3 to 6. So she got 2 buffs. Then we're going to Malik. Okay, so Malik's passive plunder. HP regen 2% of lost HP to 2% of lost HP plus 80 bonus. And then the HP regen for Cleave went from 6% of lost HP to 6% of HP plus 80 bonus. So what they're telling you here is they want you to build more attack damage on Malik. They want him to be more of a warrior off tank than a full-blown defense tank, just all defensive items. We're gonna go ahead and skip the lore update. You guys can read that on your own. Oh, this is an update to Malik's lore, okay? Because they changed his look. Probably they're trying to change it a little bit. Omega, the duration of his Guardian mode increased. Duration of his increased movement speed reduced from 5 to 3 seconds. Okay. His second ability cast forward swing is shortened by, so they make it cast a little faster. And then they added this to his ultimate. Each spin also deals a temporary knockback effect to enemy units ineffective against towers. Okay. So it's a little bit of a buff. I don't think it's too terrible. I mean, it's going to be more of a hard crowd control, so that might actually be really, really good against some heroes. I don't know. We'll see. Heroes that need to be displaced for stuff, like when they're channeling things, that might be something useful. Max is getting changed his ultimate. The physical damage is getting increased by 100, and then 150, and then 200, and the AD is being doubled. Wow. So Max's ultimate just got substantially better. And building Max with some damage just got substantially better. I mean, 2.0 AD, bonus AD is a lot. 200% of the AD extra damage. You could potentially make that. I mean, if you just built Max all AD to that, or, you know, close to it, all to that 600 amount that we kind of talked about as a possibility, you'd be hitting his ultimate at level 3 for, you know, 2,400 damage, which is pretty intense. Nothing like crazy, but for I mean, you wouldn't build max all damage. I don't think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But Aram passive, they added when Aram is in the brush and not in the enemy's vision, the ravenous beast summoned by Aram cannot be seen by the enemy. So they made it so the ravenous beast circling Aram cannot be seen, which is good. Mina's base movement speed has been reduced. Equipment adjustments. Here we are. This is where a lot of changes have been made. Also, the beast, the unique passive, has gone from 25% lifesteal to 20%. So what they're doing is, it's hard to, it doesn't really say specifically, but the lifesteal on the beast used to only be for attack damage. Now it's for attack damage and for magic. So it's interesting change. Now what I was saying before when I was on Preda was the beast seems like a really interesting item to get on Preda now because of this reason. When you hit his ultimate, remember they increased the attack speed that he can fire auto attacks, and they've increased the damage that his auto attacks do with magic damage. But he also still is going to do attack damage with his auto attack. So the beast gives him 100 attack damage, making his auto attacks hit harder. And then he gets 25% lifesteal from the magic damage and the physical damage that the beast that he does with his auto attacks. He could be lifestealing like a madman. Now you get the beast, and then you throw in an item like Rhea's Blessing, and he has 40% magic damage lifesteal and 25% attack damage lifesteal. He'll be literally lifestealing insane amounts of health when his ultimate is up and he's auto attacking people. That is a little secret thing I am ready and willing and wanting to test out on Predator to see how well it works. So if you guys try it out, and you know, let me know in the comment section how it works, how crazy his lifesteal is in his ultimate with those two items. So due to the changes they made to the beast, they've also adjusted the magic lifesteal percentage for the following heroes and equipment. All the lifesteal percentages of Valheim's magic damage have been adjusted from 100 to 50%, so obviously he doesn't go below this. Magic lifesteal percentages for Valheim ultimate from 50 to 35%. The lifesteal percentages of Talanis' ability 1's magic damage has been reduced from 100 to 50%. Because if she was lifestealing from the... So, it's interesting. They've caught it on Valheim, and they caught it on Talanis, where they're doing dual damage, magic and physical, and lifestealing from both would be overwhelming, too much lifesteal. But the person they didn't catch it with was Preda, and I'm excited to see what that looks like, because it might be a little bit something maybe to exploit before they fix it, because it probably will be fixed. I'd imagine it's going to be pretty strong, and I'm excited to see what that looks like, you know, in game, because I feel like that's something they missed. And then the magic lifesteal percentages of Heart of Incubus, Mantle of Ra, and Leviathan have been adjusted to 25%. So, and the magic lifesteal percentage of Blitzblade has been adjusted to 35%. So keep in mind, nobody was getting magic lifesteal from Mantle of Ra and Leviathan as it was. So when we have the Mantle of Ra Leviathan build that I do for a lot of heroes that does a double burn, you weren't getting any magic lifesteal on those heroes anyways, because they weren't magic damage dealers for the most part. So it's not like you had Rhea's Blessing and you were stealing, you know, 25% of all the damage you were doing with those items. For the most part, those were 80 heroes, and you're not doing that. But then the idea of building the beast on those heroes and getting lifesteal from the burns of Mantle of Rod and Leviathan, as well as the auto attacks and stuff, would have been pretty overpowered, and so that's why they made those changes. Then we're moving on to the changes to Amulet of Longevity, where they've reduced the price by 700, and then they've changed their HP regen from 100 HP per 5 seconds to 50 per 5 seconds. The HP's gone up from 17 to 1800, but they removed the passive where you get healing increased by 20% and you get an extra 10% max HP. And they included the unique passive restores 2% of max HP and 1% of mana for every second after exiting battle. In my opinion, they've more or less ruined this item. This item was a go-to item for most tanks in most situations because it was really good, and how important health is to tanks. It's very important. And then they've removed the item Crimson Banner, which was the highest health item in the game besides Amulet of Longevity and Leviathan. So, sorry, I'm a little bit sick. So it's interesting. They're clearly trying to make tanks less tanky. So those are two interesting changes that allow the top end amount of health possible for a tank to be significantly reduced by quite a bit. Then they have Odin's Will. It also leaves, to be frank, it also leaves a bit of a void of items that give solid attack damage and health, because that was Crimson Banner's thing. It was armor and health. Crimson Banner gave you a lot of armor and a lot of health, and it was solid for that. Now you're moving on to other items that are obviously probably not as useful, but just a lot of adjustments need to be made. Amulet of Longevity and Crimson Banner were in a lot of my tank builds, and now I have to adjust those. Then we're moving on to changes to Odin's Will. The price has gone up 80, and they've taken the attack damage away, and they've added 200 armor. So now, I just mentioned Crimson Banner leaves the void, and now Odin's Will fills that void by having 200 armor and 1200 HP. That's not still a crazy tank item. Now, I do want to see it in game and see if it still has its passives. So I'm going to go check it out real quick. And Odin's Will now does 200 armor, 1200 max HP, and it still gives you the passive Adrenaline, which increases movement speed by 2% and deals 2% additional damage after taking damage, stacking up to 5 times. So it's the item now makes a little bit more sense on a guy like Malik, maybe, where you're wanting more movement speed, helping him catch up with guys who are trying to kite him, and extra damage is useful. It's a different item altogether, and it'll probably fit more people than it used to, but it's just interesting changes nonetheless. Now moving on to Rock Shield, which I think was a fairly useless item for the most part. They've added 200 HP. The percentage of shield points based on max HP has gone up 2%. So they've buffed it across the board, trying to make that a more viable item. Soul Reaver attack damage gone from 40 to 60. I'm happy about that one. That's 40 was just, they overly nerfed it. They overly nerfed that item, and at 60 it's still, I think, somewhat viable. And then they reduced the price of Bow of Slaughter, which is great because it's a great item. They made some audio adjustments, some bug fixes. We're not going to go through. Well, let's finish that. We're at the end here. Let's just get it done. Let's just finish this bad boy up and call it a video. All right, the Snow Festival login and lobby music was composed by the Hexinate team. Awesome. Added hero dance and sound effects. Great. Adjusted the voice playback of heroes within matches so that the ultimate sound effects are more obvious during team fights. Cool. Music that matches the Snow Festival atmosphere has been added in matches. Phenomenal. Bug fixes. Fixed a bug in which Malik is unable to use talents while Cleave is being cast. That's cool. Fixed a bug in which Elsu is able to hit units outside of attack range when normal attack does not hit. That's a confusing one. Fixed the bug in which the storage and charge time of Elsu's ability 1 does not match with the ability description. Fixed a bug related to Elsu's vision. Okay. I wish that was more to that one. What bug was it and what did you fix? Fixed the bug in which Shagnar is unable to free himself from slow inflicted by some hero abilities. Obviously, it's important. Fixed the bug in which the percentage value based on the target's max HP of Slim's ultimate does not grow. So that might actually end up being a buff for Slims. And fixed the bug in which using talents will not interrupt recall. Alright, well there you go, folks. That is our new Snow Festival patch update. I hope you guys appreciate the breakdown on that. Really looking forward to a lot of the changes and checking them out in game. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, until next time.